Welcome to the sound of supreme bliss. This is one podcast you can't miss. Connecting real issues to the Buddhist teachings. To get the true meaning, come join the sound of supreme bliss.
Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. My name is Kalani and I have my friend Chavani here with me.
Welcome to our 8th episode of Sound of Supreme Bliss, everyone. So this week we will be talking about the discourses about the noble promises of God Sakka. This is from the book Stories of Sakka, Lord of Gods, on page 37.
Sakka, for those of you that don't know, was a human being. He adopted and undertook 7 vows by virtue of which he achieved the status of Sakka, the ruler of 2 heavenly worlds known as Tavatimsa and Chatur Maharajika. And these are the 7 vows.
So the first one is, as long as I live, I may help my parents. So sometimes we do forget that our parents are getting old as well. And we kind of forget to spend time with our parents because we're living our own lives, right, Colin?
Yeah. And I feel like it's something we take for granted as well. You know, we always just like, oh yeah, our parents are there, they're always around, and we forget to give them the attention and care and love that they deserve. And I know, especially during lockdown as well, some people, you know, being confined with all your family members at the one time, some people there might be an arising of some frustrations, and there might be some relationships maybe affected during lockdown. So sometimes it's quite natural that this happens, but we always need to respect, you know, that there are parents at the end of the day, and we do need to love and respect and care for them as long as we live, regardless of us being temporarily annoyed in the moment for something they might say or do. Which,
which is majority of the time as well, because, you know, sometimes the way they live is not the same that we're used to as well.
Yeah.
And like, we should try and help them with the time that they are with us as well. So like, you know, small things like helping with chores, just like sweeping up the house, or if you see dishes in the sink and, you know, your mum's going to eventually come down to do them, you might as well just do them, get them out of the way. But it's the small things that kind of help your parents as well. Yeah, so they are getting old, we're getting old, but they're getting older.
Exactly.
So
scary to think about when you say that.
I know, right? Because you don't really think about it. It's not something that you don't think about it on a day-to-day basis. It's only when something comes up you go, yes.
Yeah.
It's true.
And you don't realize as well that your parents are growing old, especially if you're living with them. I know some of my friends, they had to go interstate for work, and they tell me, they're like, Colony, you know, every time I come home, I see my parents, like, I see them getting older before my eyes. And I was like, oh, you know, that's something I don't see because I see my parents all the time. So, you know, it's definitely something a lot of us who live at home with our parents take for granted. And this is your message and your reminder not to do that, and to help your parents whenever you can.
Yeah. And also with technology evolving, there are so many new generations of iPads and iPhones and computers and whatnot. And majority of like the applications and everything is now online. Even for like during the pandemic, you've got to scan a QR code, and you know, the older generation don't know how to use a phone to scan a QR code. I mean, we learnt it while trialing it out as well. But we got it easy because we kind of grew up with technology.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
And so parents, they kind of have it a little bit harder, or like the older generation, because one, they didn't grow up with technology, and 2, it keeps changing. So as soon as they get used to it, it changes again.
It changes again. Like, it's hard for us to keep up too, to be honest.
Yeah. So I think we just need to take a moment and consider the fact that, you know, our parents won't always be there for us, and to not take advantage of the current time, but also, you know, so later on you can look back and be like, look, actually I did something for my parents. I was there for them when they needed me. Yeah. And it's just something to consider when you're doing everything during your everyday lives.
Yeah. And you mentioned, you know, looking after parents with the bridge in technology, because, they're quite older as well. That kind of perfectly segues onto the next part, which is, as long as I live, I will respect family elders. So that's the second vow that Lord Sakka took. And it's about respecting, there is a generation gap between the older generation and us. There's a funny joke. We say, okay, boomer, we make fun of them, but we should respect the life that they've lived and the experiences that they've lived, regardless of their views being different to ours. They did grow up in a different time, in a different culture and a different society as well. We still need to respect them simply because they are their elders, and we need to just, regardless of the differences, respect them as who they are as people. Chavi, you actually told me a really interesting story about this one that you're about with your mum.
Yeah, so she's a nurse and she used to work at an aged care, and so she comes across a lot of older people and some with illnesses, sicknesses, and so forth. So she always brings a story home, and this story was about an Italian lady who has dementia, and so her mother tongue is Italian, and she obviously moved down here quite some time ago. Her kids grew up here. They only know how to speak English because she thought that with the current environment, she should be teaching her kids English rather than Italian, and so her grandkids and so forth, and they're all speaking in English. But with time, this Italian lady, she kind of went back to her mother tongue, which is Italian. And so she had a really tough time communicating with her kids and her grandkids because they didn't know Italian.
Yeah.
They only know English, but she's kind of gone backwards because of dementia.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard to communicate. And I felt like at that point when Mum told me about it, I was like, you know what, I'm really grateful that my parents took the time to wake me up at 9 o'clock in the morning and take me to Dhamma Pasal and Single School to, learn the basics of Sinhala. And back then I was like, just waking up at 9 o'clock to, learn how to write in Sinhala is just really, really tough. But it actually helps in life if something like this was to happen. I can still communicate to my parents or my grandparents or, people in Sri Lanka in Sinhala rather than English because, one, this communication isn't quite there.
Yeah.
And also, to be able to read, some basic Buddhism books, which is in Sinhala and, it's originally in Pali, but it's got a closer connection. Sinhala and Pali had a closer connection rather
English,
than Pali and English.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting, and it's things that you don't hear about on a day-to-day basis, but when someone talks about it, you go, oh, you know what, you're right. There is things like this that is happening to everyone else in the world.
And also, learning languages does help you, gives you a deeper understanding of the culture as well. So it only kind of makes it easier for you to respect your elders in that culture and that context as well, just to know how to treat people the way that they should be treated too. So yeah, it is definitely important to learn your language and speak to people in the language that they know too.
So the third one is, as long as I live, I may speak gently. Any ideas, Colin?
Well, so that, to me, that sounds like not using harsh words, speaking with kindness and understanding. I work I work with customers on a regular basis, patients, clients, things like that. And I know for a fact if a patient or a customer is having a problem and they come at me all guns blazing, angry, you did this wrong, you're not doing this right, and they're yelling at me, the last thing I want to do is help them. I'm going to do the bare minimum to get this person away from me, and that's all I'm going to do, just to maintain a neutral interaction. That's all I'm going to do. But if someone comes to me and then they speak to me kindly and loving, gently, I want to go above and beyond for this person because it's easier for me to empathize with them when they're speaking to me in a calm, neutral manner. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry this happened. and I will literally go above and beyond. Like, I'm not even going to lie. I've given some customers discounts just because they were nice to me. And I was like, you know what? Being nice to people and speaking gently goes a long way. I feel like, Chavity, you actually have a really, really good story for this one too.
Yes, actually. Happened recently as well.
Yeah, happened very recently.
So we went to listen to some Dhamma sermons at one of our family friends' house. And like everyone else, we kind of got carried away with our lives, you know, working, studying, trying to fit in everything that we missed out in the past year.
We decided to, you know, pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and, you know, start recording again. And Chavity will tell you why.
Well, actually, during that Dhamma sermon, after it all ended, I went and spoke with the Swami once there, and the way Swami spoke to me was in the most gentle manner, and it was really motivating because Swami was like, you know, you should continue to do this podcast because there is so many people out there who do listen to it and they actually enjoy listening to everyday talk along with Dhamma. So people can relate to it more. And the way Swami spoke about it, though, it was in the most kindest way possible. And instantly I was like, yes. And I just felt like, you know, this is something I have to do because Swami was really nice about it. Like it was in the most kindest way possible and very understanding of our current situation as well. Instantly, I just wanted to change because of the way that Swami spoke to me. And that takes there's a difference. If someone spoke in a harsh way, you definitely don't feel like doing it. But when they're in a really understanding and a loving, kind manner, you instantly just you just say yes.
You have no option but to say yes because it was so well spoken, and you're just like, okay, yes, I will do it. I will do it right now.
That's it. And it was just really nice to hear it, and to actually be like, you know what, Simons is right. I was so carried about like going on about my everyday life that I didn't really have time to think about anything else sort of thing. I didn't really think about, you know, there are people out there who like to listen to podcasts and it's a better understanding of Dhamma which relates to our everyday life and so forth. And just being able to help people in the easiest way possible, which is like by interactions and talking. So, definitely an eye-opener there.
And on the topic of speaking gently, the next vow that Sakka made was, as long as I live, I may not speak divisively. So what that means is not causing disagreements between people, not creating conflict, obviously not breaking relationships and friendships. I feel like a classic example of this is someone that's two-faced. And I feel like everyone, you know, would know what I mean when I say someone that's being two-faced, someone that's showing one front to you, but then behind your back is saying something else. And I'm sure we would have all come across someone like that at least once in our life. And that is a prime example of someone you don't want to be, because when you're around someone that's, for example, bad-mouthing people, saying things, you can only imagine what they're saying behind your back too. And that kind of attitude is not something you want to engage with, and people don't like being around that. So obviously stay away from that. You know, as Chavity mentioned, you know, when Swaminatha spoke to her just lovingly and gently, you're more inclined to want to surround yourself with people like that. And Swaminatha definitely didn't say anything divisive to you, so it brought Chavity and I together again to make sure we got this podcast up and running again. So that's the next thing, is to not speak divisively and to not create conflict between people.
Yeah, and it was just like, as soon as I saw Kalani later on, I was like, do you know what happened? And I just told her because it really hit me, the way Swami spoke. And I thought it would be really good to share with Kalani as well, because not only is she doing the podcast with me, but it was really beautiful, honestly. It was really, really nice.
And to be fair, I needed to hear that too, because I was just similar. Like I obviously got carried away with life, and I was just like, oh, Because I know the Swaminatha that Chavani's talking about, and I was like, I can only imagine how Swaminatha spoke to you, and I was just like, okay, right, I have to do this now. Like, I have not making excuses, gone are the days. Chavani literally messaged me yesterday. She's like, hey, we need to record. I'm like, okay, done. Let's do it tomorrow. So that's the power of speaking gently to people. It gets things done, and it makes people feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so on to the fifth one. So, as long as I live, I may live at home without greediness, removing the stain of stinginess, open-handed, always ready to give, always free to help others, delighting in giving and sharing, and well organized in giving charity. So this is a lot to do with donations, giving away, helping other people. But one way to look at it is thinking that everything is impermanent. So if you look at it that way, it's just easier. It's an easier way to think of things. So, for example, clothes. I have a habit of some clothes that I don't like. If I buy them instantly and I come home and I go, oh, that's not exactly what I want. I have a habit of just leaving the tags on and I put it into another bag that I will either give away or for a later stage, because most of the time I lose a receipt or something, so I can't give it back anyway.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I just put it in a bag, and then when I'm doing my spring cleaning, I take it all out, and because they're still new clothes, I put them into a bag to give to what's it called? I went blank.
Op shops?
Yeah, op shops. So like it's giving away clothes, and it's like stores and places that give those clothes to other people in need, sort of thing. And I did that a lot when we were going to Lanka as well. I would usually do a spring clean up before I go Lanka. So then I find all those new clothes that I put in different places, put them all together and add that to my 30 kilos.
Oh my
of
God.
luggage. But yeah, no, just thinking that everything's impermanent. It's just an easier way of life, honestly.
Yeah. When you think that everything's impermanent too, it just makes it so much easier to give. Because, like, if you think, like, oh, you know, this is a bit like getting dark real fast, but if you literally just like, oh, you know, like, I could die tomorrow, and you're just like, well, what am I going to do with all this, like, wealth sitting with me? Like, I could, like, give it to people, and not, like, I'm not encouraging everyone to just, like, go ahead and just, like, lose all your wealth, but I'm just saying, like, it encourages the act of giving. You know, if you see someone that needs help, you know, there's so many times, so many people walk by, so many homeless people, like, you just think, like, you just start to ignore them after a while, and a lot of people do that, and it's just taking the moment to be like, oh, look, you know, I have some change, let me give you some spare change, or if you want, going out of their way to maybe buy them a hot meal or something just to help. And if you think, you know, like, this life is impermanent and this person's situation is pretty bad, it helps to give as well. For me, at least, I just remind myself, I'm like, if I was to die in the next 5 minutes, at least I died doing a good deed, not walking past someone and ignoring them. That's the way I think about it, at least. And I know that's a bit dark sometimes, but it's the concept of impermanence, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't take anything with you. The only thing you're taking is pretty much the merits that you gained and the demerits. So best way is just to always consider that everything is impermanent. It's also like one way of looking at, you know, helping your parents as well. Everything is impermanent. Your parents are impermanent. You're impermanent. Your friends are impermanent. Everything around you is impermanent. Yeah. So to be able to give and kind of give and then also forget. So I know some people who give things, but they always hold a grudge and go, oh, well, you know, I gave this, why aren't they giving something back?
Yeah, it's very transactional. It's like they expect something in return.
Exactly, yeah. And there's a lot of the time, I can't remember where I've heard it from. They said that if you say you give money to someone, if you're going to give it in a way that you don't expect anything in back.
Yeah,
so on the back of your head, you're not going, oh, I gave this person $200. Are they ever going to pay me back? Don't ever think of it that way. If you've given it, you're done. It's gone. It's impermanent. It's finito.
Yeah.
So you just got to learn to move on with it and, you know, forget about it, because that's not, you holding on to that isn't not going to help you in any way. Yeah. It's going to either bring anger, it's going to bring hatred, it's unnecessary, and you can avoid it if you think
Yeah.
that everything's impermanent.
The next vow that Lord Sakka took was, as long as I live, I may speak the truth. And this is a pretty simple and obvious one. If you are keeping your 5 precepts, the 4th precept is to abstain from lying. So if you are abstaining from lying, you are inherently telling the truth and speaking the truth. So I feel like we don't need to go into too much detail with that one, but obviously if you are avoiding divisive speech and all of that, you will be speaking the truth. So yeah, unless there's something you wanted to add to that, Travini.
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Pretty much abstain from lying about
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
It could be something small to you, like and like a joke. But usually jokes come from lying anyway.
Yeah.
So if you can avoid that,
Yeah.
it's probably the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So the last one, number 7, is, as long as I live, may I be free from anger. And if anger should arise in me, may I remove it quickly. For example, you can practice loving kindness meditation. Anger is something that's kind of like an everyday emotion, and I feel like these days a lot of people are more angry because there's lockdowns, there's people can't associate with other people as much. It's frustration build up. We saw a lot during lockdown, right, Connie?
Yeah, people are more irritable, and I think this is a really good reminder for people because, as I mentioned earlier on in the episode, where we might be like ruining some of our relationships with our parents. It's also good to remind ourselves that that's happening because we are more irritable and we are getting angry more. And if we were to, to dispel this anger or remove the anger, you wouldn't be having a lot of the problems that you're having with your relationships or with just with the circumstances going on in the world at the moment. Because at the end of the day, it is not within your control. It's understandable you're upset with the situation, with the pandemic and everything, but it's not within your control. Only thing you can control is how you respond to it. So it's important to get rid of the anger because the anger it's not a productive feeling. Like it just makes you feel bad. And then people around you don't like being around you. Like it's not a productive feeling. Whereas if you were to, practice the loving kindness meditation, it helps reduce the anger for sure. And it makes you be a more pleasant person to be around.
Yeah, and anger doesn't help you with anything.
Exactly.
It's something that you definitely regret later on, and it kind of helps you to do wrongdoings.
Absolutely.
You during an angry moment, you might do something that you regret, or it might cause harm to someone else. Which is something we want to avoid doing because it's a very bad feeling.
Yeah.
It makes you feel really, really dark.
Yeah.
And you kind of lose motivations to do the good things and you miss out on the good opportunities and the good moments in life because of this anger, when if you were to concentrate on just loving kindness, being, kind of being the light rather than the darkness.
That's so true. Sorry, keep going.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's so true. Like when has there ever been a good decision or a good outcome from anger? Like that's never happened. I feel like you literally hear stories and like crimes and everything committed because a person was angry or frustrated. Like you never get a good outcome from being angry. So yeah, practicing loving kindness is definitely will grant you those positive outcomes and give you more opportunities just simply because you're more pleasant to be around, and those things will attract into your life, I think.
That was a very good conversation, actually. I really enjoyed that.
There is one thing that I just wanted to say, which it's a little quote which kind of summarizes everything that we talked about today. Which is when a person supports his parents, and respects his family members, and his speech is gentle and courteous, and he refrains from divisive words. When he strives to remove stinginess, is truthful, and vanquishes anger, the Tavatimsadevas call him truly a superior person. So, yeah.
Way to end it.
I know. I'd like to be a superior person, you know. Yeah.
So, before we end the program, we would like to share merits with everyone today. And once again, I want to also mention that when we are sharing merits, we will be asking permission to say our teacher's name by using the word avasare. So this is out of respect for our teacher.
Alrighty, so let's share the merits we have collected today with the heavenly beings, with our teacher, Avasarai Most Venerable Kiribat Goda Nyanyananda Thero, also known as Pinwat Lokuswamin Manse to us, with the Venerable Sangha, the volunteers who work hard in sharing the Buddhist teachings, and with all the participants of today's program. May you all rejoice in these merits and realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So there are also other places where you can access the Buddhist teachings in English. So there is a CDF, Colombo Dhamma Friends Facebook page, YouTube, and they have a website as well, www.serenecolombo.org. We've also got Sutta Friends, so suttafriends.org to find suttas. On YouTube, CDF, so Colombo Dhamma Friends on YouTube, has videos of discussions, sermons, and Monks in the Morning, which is another podcast. Monks in the Morning, along with Sound of Supreme Bliss, is also accessible on various platforms such as Spotify and iTunes. And you can visit serenecolombo.org to find out more about the other platforms that we are also on.
Yeah, so as Shavani mentioned, these are all the platforms that you can use to keep up to date with programs, videos, and live programs. Don't forget to tune in next time for another episode of Sound of Supreme Bliss.
Supreme bliss you can't miss. The sound of supreme bliss.